This
Realm. But
conference will
go
now
ahead.
be recorded.
Very good. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the time to spend with you today. And I'll look forward to doing some business with you so that we can get this product out there in your marketplace, and kind of excited about the opportunity to maybe work with Camp Lejeune to get some of these things in their hands. So whatever I can do to assist, please don't hesitate. So first of all, what I like to do is kind of introduce myself. And my name is Jack Bartell, and I am manager of technical services for North America. So I've been in the industry for 50 plus years now. I was 16 years with York International, then another 15 years with a distributor of York's. I worked for a contractor for many years, and of course, cut my teeth as a service technician starting around 1970. So, and I currently sit on the board of directors for PARA, which is the organization that provides accreditation to the industry's trade schools, and also NATE, RSES, and ACCA. So if there's ever anything from one of those organizations that you're looking for or you need, then don't hesitate to ask, because I usually can get in touch with somebody that's a mover and a shaker in one of those organizations.
Right.
In the upper right-hand corner of your screen there, that's me, and you can see that pole kind of bent over there. And I tell people all the time that I either work or I fish. Those are the two things I like to do. So that pole is bent over as I try to bring this guy in. It was a
Oh my
88
gosh,
pound,
a halibut, huh?
88-pound halibut that I got back in July when I was in Alaska. And unfortunately, I not only caught about a half a dozen salmon and two nice sized halibut, I also caught the COVID while I was there. So
Oh gosh.
I had I did not have to be hospitalized except for one day, but I was very sick for 2 weeks, and I was actually in California when I finally got sick. So I had to drive home from Anaheim, California to Hampton, Virginia, cross country while I was still sick, just to be able to get home, because they wouldn't let me on a plane.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow.
I would not wish that COVID on an enemy. So hopefully, if anybody's had it, they're okay.
Right. Yeah, well, that's a nice looking fish. It looks like what we're used to is a flounder.
Yes, and that's, I live on the Chesapeake Bay here in Hampton, Virginia, and flounder fishing is one of my target species a good part of the year. But we don't grow the flounder near as big as those halibut.
Yeah, they never get that big, but that's exactly what they look like.
They are. Yes. And halibut has a very light tasting flavor as well. So just like, flounder will taste like whatever you cook it in, but and halibut will be kind of the same. So before I go into the product, I just want to quickly give you a quick overview of the company itself. So the name of the
Okay.
company is Olympia Splendid, and it was started in 1956. And they have been manufacturing HVAC products in addition to other products since somewhere around 1960s. And the product that has been out there for over 20 years is called the Maestro Smart. And that's the non-inverter driven product, which you may have already seen. And I'm going to obviously show you that shortly. But that product's been out for over 20 years. So one of the things I like to make sure people understand, both yourselves and then at some point your customer, is this is not a Johnny come lately company. They have been around for almost 64 years now, and
Right.
they have a very, very unique method of manufacturing. They do all their manufacturing in a little town called Brescia, Italy, and it's about an hour and a half from Venice. But you can see the global footprint that the company has, and we are in both North America, South America, Australia, China, and then a variety of spots in Europe. So it is a international company, and again, we bring the product in from Italy. The product is stored at our facility. We have basically it's a public warehouse in New Jersey. And then at some point, all of that will be moved to Dallas, Texas, where they intend to have a brick and mortar building. And we hope to see that happening before the end of the year. COVID kind of put us behind the 8 ball a little bit, where the factory was shut down for many months. And so some of the things that we expected to have, in addition to the products we already have been delayed. But we're not unique in the organization or in the
Oh, no.
everybody got hit pretty good.
Okay, and so I understand they're manufactured over there. Kind of tell me about your warehouse. I mean, how many units do you have in New Jersey, would you say, on hand?
Oh, probably over 500, probably 750 of a variety of products. So,
Okay, nice.
we bring product in typically by the container load. So,
Right.
and the factory makes changes that make sense whenever it does make sense. So we may we may say to the factory, hey, can we make this change? And if they agree with it, they'll make that change. Then the next container we get will have that change implemented. So, it's a constantly evolving product. And again, the product that we are most proud of is what we call our Maestro product line. And
Yep.
that, there are 2 models currently available: the Maestro Smart, which is a 9,212 BTUs, and then the Maestro Pro, which is 11,600 BTUs, both of which are heat pumps. So you can see the thing that's most unique about our product is the impact that it has on the building outside. So if you look in the upper right-hand picture there, you can see the 2 grills, and everything needed for the installation basically ships with the unit. And so you can see the 2 grills, and that's what you see on the outside. Now in
Yep.
Europe, a lot of times they don't use a drain, so you don't see a drain hole here. But for most applications in the US, we would definitely want to use the drain. So typically, through whatever your exterior is, you're drilling 2 holes 8 inches around and 1 hole, say 3/4 inch, to accommodate your drain line. And so as you can see from the picture in the upper right, these units are installed. This particular unit is installed underneath the window, so closer to the floor. And then if you look
Right.
at the bottom right picture, you can see where these are installed above the windows or high on the wall. And you can see there's
Gotcha.
a whole, I believe this picture is actually one in Canada, and you can see that it's all high wall. So it can be installed as low as 4 inches from the floor or as high as 4 inches from the ceiling. So anywhere on an outside wall between those
Yep.
2 parameters. But it
Okay,
must,
what do they do in Europe about the condensate?
well, because a lot of their markets don't have a great deal of humidity, uh, they will allow the units to, basically the unit has floats in it. And in the summertime, and I'll show you this a little more detail as we get a little further, but in the
Okay.
summertime, we use a pump and a slinger, if you will, and the condensate during the summertime is basically slung up onto the condenser coil, and then
Yeah,
almost all of it
it just
evaporates.
pushed outdoors. I got you.
Yes, yes. And then so in the wintertime, when you're operating in heat pump mode, then you're going to have condensation from your defrost mode. So in the wintertime, they don't use a great deal of the unit in the wintertime. Typically, they have some secondary form of heat, but
Right.
when it gets low enough where they're producing condensate, there's a float in the unit that will shut the unit off when the condensate reaches a certain height, and then it shuts the unit off, and then they just drain the condensate out, and then they might go 2 weeks again before they need to do that. Mhm.
Okay. Perfect.
But like I said, in our market, certainly in your market, I mean, you're in a southern market, but you get cooler temperatures, so you will have defrost operation in winter, and you'll also have, depending on how humid it is, and I know that in the North Carolina area, it can be very, very humid. So you may not be able to sling all of the condensate in the summertime, so you're always going to want to have a drain.
Right. Okay.
So again, it is an Italian design. Now, this is what you're looking at right now is the Smart. And again, it's an Italian design. It's manufactured in Italy as well. And it's easy to maintain. You can see you just lift up a door at the top and you have easy access to your filters. So the filter area and the return, if you will, is on the top of the unit. And then there is as you can see in that upper right-hand picture, there is a flap that opens up and it is a modulating flap. So, you can set it for whatever airflow you prefer in terms of how you're directing it. Okay. And of course, one of the things I can also send to you when in a PDF would be all of our documents, our technical guides, our installation instructions, troubleshooting, all of that I can send to you on a zip drive, basically a zip file, and you can have all the most current literature at your fingertips. Okay. So this is a look at the front of the tech guide for the Smart. And by the way, I may have forgotten to mention earlier, any questions that you have during this presentation, please, just stop me and ask the question rather than saving it for later, because sometimes you'll forget it.
Right. Well, I do have a question. I have been studying this unit. Is there like another control? Is there, I know it comes with a remote, but is there like a primary controller that's built on top of this unit?
Well, it comes with a controller, and then if you want something other than, it comes with a remote control, and if you want to control it any other way, we also have a Wi-Fi kit that you can install that basically then uses there's an online app that you can download from either the Apple Store or from Android, and so you can operate remotely using an app. We also have a wireless thermostat that can be used. We are working on a wired thermostat, but at this point we don't have that available. So either Wi-Fi, remote control, or a wireless thermostat.
Okay, perfect.
So again, this is the one front page of we have a two-sided technical guide that gives you basically all the information about the unit. And so this is the meat and potatoes side. So it tells you about what the unit is and what its heating and cooling capacities are, how many watts it uses, its CEER and COP, and then how much condensate it can remove from the air. Tells you what type of compressor you have, and of course your dimensions, your weight, and your sound levels. So when installed, this unit doesn't sound much different, quite frankly, than a mini split air handler. So even though the compressor is located inside the space, you would have to struggle to hear it.
Well, are most PTACs rated based off of the CEER?
Well, so now a PTAC is typically rated on SEER, but this unit is classified by the Department of Energy as a room air conditioner. And so room air conditioners are rated in CEER, which is combined energy efficiency ratio, whereas SEER is seasonal energy efficiency ratio. So as a room air conditioner, we have to rate it in the CEER, and we can also list the COP, for your heating as well.
Okay.
So the unit comes with a 7-year warranty on the compressor, 2-year warranty on all parts. It is a patented design, again, designed in Italy. And if a compressor fails in the first year, then we simply replace the unit. And then we would ask that the unit be sent then either to me or to a service center, which we are trying to set up in around various parts of the country, where the service center would get the unit in and then just check and see why did the compressor fail. But one of the things I'd like to point out is the number of parts that fail on this unit are very, very few. So if you're familiar with HVAC manufacturing stateside, there's a metric that they use called warranty to sales ratio. Now, every manufacturer in the US, of course, there's three primary criteria that go into your warranty to sales ratio. How many parts fail in the first year? I'm sorry, how many parts fail in the first 30 days? How many parts fail in the first year? And how many parts fail in the first 5 years? So after you have 5 years of product in the field, that's when you get your best look at what the quality of your product is. And in the US, and I've worked for two manufacturers in my lifetime, York primarily for many, many years. If the warranty to sales ratio is less than 2%, we thought we were geniuses, because that is when you're producing, tens of thousands of something and your warranty rate is under 2%. We always thought that was quite good. I mean, the goal is always 0, but that's an impossible read, But anyway, so this product's been out for over 20 years, and the warranty to sales ratio is 0.02%. So again, that is as good a warranty ratio as you can hope to expect.
Right.
Now, another thing that's rather important are, in some parts of the country, there are two sound measurements. One is called STC, which you see there, sound transmission class, and the other is outdoor-indoor transmission class. And these both basically are used to provide a building owner or an architect or even a consumer with an understanding of, if you're in let's say you're in a city or urban area and there's outside noise all around, if I cut a hole in your building, how much additional noise can you expect in your home or wherever the unit is located? How much additional noise will you hear because this unit has been cut into your wall? So the answer for our units is you will have no difference in outdoor noise coming in. So the STC of 36 and the OITC of 25, those are the highest numbers that can be achieved. So no one else comes close to those. In fact, I think it's GE and their PTAX, they advertise that they have a very good STC of 29 and their OITC is 21. So, we outshine the best when it comes to the PTAC, which you'll sometimes be compared to.
Okay. Okay, so the higher the number, the better it is, which, we're familiar with using like NC levels, and the lower the NC level, the quieter it is. So I'm getting adjusted to the terminology.
So in the tech guide, we also list our dB level.
Okay.
And again, that's a lot of times what people want to know as well. So this is actually a little slide I put together, I think last month, because I get a lot of calls from people say, well, I'm going to do this, and what do I need, and this. So I made up this this list just to show you that, if you're going to be cutting it in a standard construction wall, for instance, really all you need is a Sawzall and a bit that can drill a 3/4 inch hole. Because again, you're going to have two 8-inch holes. But then if you're going to be going through concrete, which is what happens a lot in Europe, concrete and brick and stone, okay, then you're going to want to use a core bit with a either wet or dry with a proper size electric drill to use that core bit. Okay.
Right.
The recommendation is wet is better than dry when you're using those type, but it all depends on as long as you have water available. And the advantage of having the wet is it keeps the dust down as well.
Right.
And then of course multimeters, temperature probes, tape or pins to hang the template on the wall, razor knife, duct tape to seal the duct seam, and just standard hand tools, a stud finder. And I also recommend to people that every service technician should have resistors on their truck. because if you ever have a problem with a sensor, a temperature sensor, these are, for the most part, 10K negative coefficient thermistors. And so if you have a sensor that fails open or a sensor that fails shorted, you can use a resistor to basically emulate whatever temperature you want that unit to see. So it's just something that it's not necessarily needed for installation, but if you had to service the unit and you wanted to validate some things, they come in quite handy.
Yeah, this is handy.
So the installation is about as easy as it comes, because you really don't, first of all, the unit can be installed by someone that is not an HVAC technician. You don't need to have refrigeration level experience to install the unit. So essentially the template that comes with the unit is about a 36 by 24 inch sheet of paper that's folded up. You unfold it and you mount it on the wall where you intend to use the unit. And then you can also, you can move it so that you make sure that your 2 8-inch holes, have a stud between them, and that you have it up off the ground at least 4 inches and down from the wall at least, or from the ceiling at least 4 inches as well. So this is basically a look at the template itself. And one of the things I want to point out here, let's see.
Yeah, it looked like you guys have designed this to really be installed from the inside of the building, where these grills fold in half.
Yes. So
You've made it pretty slick, actually.
I'll get to that very shortly, but I wanted to point out that you'll notice that there are 2 dimensions on where you drill your holes. There's an 8-inch dimension, okay? And so essentially, the recommendation is always that you use the 8-inch size holes, okay? Now, you'll also notice that it's listed at 6.4 inches as well, okay? So you can use 2 6.4-inch holes. It's not recommended because you suffer a little bit of efficiency loss because you're not moving as much air, okay? So as long as you have the geographic availability, in other words, you have no geographic constraints that would prevent you from using the 2 8-inch, then you would always want to use those. And if you have to use the 6.4, you can, but you have to use both as 6.4. And in fact, the unit comes shipped from the factory set up for 6.4, and then you remove either 1 or 2 pieces, depending on what model you're using, to make it 8-inch. And then here you see the condensate drain hole. And 2 things to point out is, and if you had to do your electrical cable, if you were going to say go through the wall, that's also marked here. But that's the major difference between the Smart and the Pro, is their condensate and cable come out opposite sides of each other. So a Pro unit can mount where a Smart unit has been. You would just have to make a secondary hole for your condensate drain.
Okay. I guess my question on these 2 holes is, one's an inlet air and one's an outlet air. Do you have a fan that's moving the air, or is it done?
So there is an, in this, both the Smart and the Pro, you basically have 3 motors. You have a motor inside your compressor, you have a outside air or condenser air fan, and then you have an evaporator fan, okay?
Got it.
So in the Smart model, of course, it's a rotary compressor, and it has a PSC motor for the condenser or outside air, and then it has a PSC motor for the evaporator or inside air. Okay. On the Pro model, which is the inverter-driven model, you have obviously the inverter-driven compressor, and then you have 2 ECM motors, which I'm sure you're familiar with ECM motors.
Yep.
So do I have to have a neutral wire?
No. So, well, basically you have to have a 115 volt circuit, which would be, hot, neutral, and ground, right? 3-wire plug.
Right. I have to provide a separate neutral for that ECM.
No. You can plug. This unit comes with a 115 volt, 15 amp plug on the end, and you just plug it into a wall socket.
All right, is there any means where I can just cut that plug off and hardwire it? Is there instructions for doing that?
Well, we have no instructions for doing, but you can. I mean, if you were going to hardwire it,
That void a UL warranty.
it does not, because like I said, you can cut the plug off and hardwire it if you choose to do so. It's not exactly what we recommend you do, though, and the reason for that is to service the units. If you have to service it to, say, clean the condenser coil and the evaporator coil, basically this just sits on a bracket, and then it sits up against the wall. Just the weight of itself keeps it up against the holes that you've made in the wall. So if you want to take the unit down to maintenance it, typically you're going to unplug it from the socket and lift it off and put it on the ground, and you can wheel it outside if you wanted to clean it or clean it right where it is. So if you hardwire it, then you'd have to then open the unit up to get the wire off so that you could take it down.
Well, that was one of my questions. For like a nursing home, your maintenance guy may not be HVAC service tech, and if they had a unit fail, he could really have one of these units in his office that he could take, pull the bad one off, and replace it with one relatively quickly to get them back up and running.
That's in fact what the majority of the service centers in Europe do, exactly that. So they'll keep a spare unit in their inventory, and if a consumer that the unit is broke down, they just go there, pick it up, put another one in its place, and then they bring it back to their shop to troubleshoot it, rather than do it inside the home. So if you're going to sell a job that's going to have any significant number of units, it would certainly be in the interests of the facility to have, again, one or two spares, depending on how many units you have there, so that they can not let the consumer or the occupant be uncomfortable for any length of time. This is actually an illustration of the Pro model template. And again, the only difference is the drain location and the plug location. And then you see these two little brackets here. So the Pro comes with these two little brackets, although neither myself or Diego have been very fond of those little tiny brackets. And so the factory is now going to replace those. And the next truckload we get, or I should say container load, it will have a bracket similar to the one that's used on the smart unit, which is a long bracket that then you have a lot more opportunity to hit the studs in your wall.
Got you. Yep.
So again, once you have your template on, you can see the bracket on the wall here, which is the one that is basically the smart, and the Pro model will be coming next. The next shipment will be coming with replacement, with the long bracket in it as well. So if you had a Pro,
I mean, this type bracket's almost the exact same way or bracket that's used on the new TVs for wall mounting TVs. I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah, and so like I said, if you got a Pro installation and because of those two little brackets, you were having a hard time finding a stud, because these units weigh about 86 pounds or 83 pounds.
Right.
So, you're not going to use just the sheetrock, because nothing good will come from that. So it would have to be into a stud. And if you needed a replacement, if you didn't want to use those two little brackets, I have some spare smart brackets, and I'm getting 50 of the Pro brackets sent to me as well. So we can always accommodate that.
Okay.
So again, you're going to cut your two 8-inch holes, and then you're going to, between the inside wall and the outside wall, you have to install ductwork. Okay. And the ductwork ships with the unit. So there you see the ductwork that ships with the unit. They're two pieces of black laminated type plastic, and basically you cut it to the thickness of your wall between inside and outside, and then you roll it into a duct. Okay, so you put a seam at the bottom of, you've got two seams there, the inside and the outside seam. So you tape those two seams up, and then when you install that duct in the wall, you basically make sure that your seam is on the top, because you're going to install it in the wall so that it's pitched slightly to the outdoors. That way, if any condensate or rainwater gets in, it just rolls back out again.
Yep. Okay.
So again, this would be cut to whatever the thickness of your wall is. I usually tell people cut it maybe 3/4 of an inch less, and that makes it easy for you to get your grills in.
Yep.
But again, that's all the duct, and the as I mentioned earlier, these have to be installed on a wall that communicates with the outdoors, and the wall can be no longer than 39 inches or no deeper than 39 inches. So that's the maximum depth your outside wall can be.
If it was longer, could you just make, or is it just a static issue?
It's a static issue, quite frankly, because it's very important that these units remain quiet. I mean, that's what people want in a unit that's inside their house. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to know it's running, except on occasion. So the reason why you can put no elbows and no bends in your duct, because any elbow or bend adds static pressure, and the very fractional motors that are on the unit simply are not designed to handle higher statics.
Yeah. So like on a residential construction where you have, everybody's going to foam injected walls.
Sure.
Would you still really even need this little sleeve?
Well, yes, because again, you don't want any rainwater or condensate to get. So in fact, what you'd want to do if they're going to be, say, spraying the interior walls with foam, you're better off getting this, cutting the hole in your outside wall and your inside wall and getting this duct in there before they spray.
Prior to foaming. Yep.
For new construction, you have that capability. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that foam, when it cures, it expands, right? So would that just?
Well, again, most of the foams that they're using today are not like, say, the foam you may have been familiar with in years past, where, when that foam expanded in years past, it would actually pop sheetrock off the wall because it would get so dense, But the newer, and it would probably crush that plastic tube. But like I said, the more contemporary foams that are used for interior walls or exterior walls doesn't expand to that strength.
Okay.
So again, as you mentioned earlier, the grills are designed so that if you can make your hole and make your cut from the inside, then the grills basically can fold in half. After you put your duct through, you can fold the grill in half. You connect the chain and the spring on it that come with the unit, and then the chain and the spring hold the unit, the grill outside. You fold it in half, it pops open, then you pull it tight up against the outside wall.
Yeah, that was really neat. I could see somebody needing that like on a 100-story building or a high-rise building, but here in Wilmington, it would be easy enough to get to these exterior grills.
Sure. So there are the springs and the chains, and these little tabs here go into the, there's a slot in the outside grill that the end of the spring goes into that slot, then it goes into the grill and it's held in place. Then you just use as much length of chain as you need to keep the ring tight against the inside wall and the grill tight against the outside wall. And there you see the grills and the rings. So sorry about that. The grills, that little tab I showed you goes into here with the spring, and then
Gotcha.
the chain, when you pull it tight, just gets placed onto these little knobs that stick up, and with your ductwork in between, you are finished.
Got you. Yeah, that's ingenious.
And so there you see basically what it looks like after it's put together, where the chains are mounted. And notice on the lower left how we have the
Slope.
yeah, it's tipped slightly to the outside, so that again, if any rainwater got in here, it just runs back out again. And then if you look at the lower right, you see also we recommend that you take your drain line and run it out through the wall and outside. And again, that should be tipped slightly to the outside so the condensate drains fully. Okay. Now the unit.
I did go back to the previous slide. I did have a question because I know you mentioned that we had to be either 4 inches from the ceiling or 4 inches from the floor. On your P-trap dimension, what I know it's very small on my end. What is that dimension in your P-trap height?
Actually, that's 300 millimeters. Or no, I'm sorry, 30 millimeters. It's only a few inches that you need. In other words, the only time you're going to do this is if you're going to run, so let's say it's new construction, and rather than having the water drain outside, you want to drain into you're going to run a drain line, inside the wall. And so you can just create a little P-trap there to have that inside the wall, And
Okay.
but again, I would say 99 times out of 100, they're installed much like you see in the bottom picture, not the top picture.
Got you. Okay.
So again, the unit ships with the smart model unit ships with a remote control, and it takes 2 AAA batteries. But the remote control that ships with the smart is Fahrenheit only. So let's say you did an installation for someone who just moved down from Canada or moved here from Europe and they're more comfortable in metric, okay? Then we have a metric model available. It's like, I think it's $25 or something if they wanted to replace it with a metric. And then you can see on the plug, it's got the GFI plug on the end of the unit where you can plug it in the wall, and it provides that, ground fault protection.
Yep.
And one of the things I like to point out to folks too is so the smart model will use right at about 9 amps, okay? So as long as you're using less than half of a standard 15 amp circuit for other items, you're fine. But when you if you're doing an application that is a retrofit and there's a plug nearby that you can use, you're going to want to get with the homeowner and make sure that, say on that particular plug, they don't also have a microwave oven or a refrigerator or ice machine or something that draws significant amount of watts. Because if it's drawing more than 8 watts, then, or I'm sorry, 8 amps, then you run the risk of tripping that GFI plug because of overcurrent.
Right.
So just
a
something.
question on this remote: Are these remotes universal? I mean, are they the thermostat and the controller? And if you had a nursing home, I mean, how far will these remotes? I mean, could somebody be in their room changing the temperature and it affect the next room over?
No, because they're IR, so it has to be in line of sight. So as long as there's a wall between the 2 rooms, they are universal. And if you took the remote from, say, room number 2 and brought it over to room number 3, and you were in that room, that remote will work. But if there's a wall, then that doesn't matter.
Got you.
Well, hey, how close are y'all to getting this wired remote?
A wired remote. I mean, the factory is working on it now. Like I said, we had hoped to have it before the end of 2020, but like I say, we were shut down for so long, and our R&D group wasn't even allowed at the factory. They had to work from home, and it's hard to do R&D from your home, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, everything's a little bit behind, but again, I think we'll have hopefully something. We're hoping for something in the first quarter of this year, but I don't like to make promises I can't keep. So don't hold me to that.
Okay, but it's coming.
It's coming. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Now this is just a quick graphic on the condensate that basically we use a pump, and there are two floats in the unit. When the first float, when you're in cooling mode, the lower of the two floats, when it closes because the condensate raises, it turns on a little pump and it pumps that condensate up onto the condenser coil. And then there's also a second float, and I'll show you a better picture of that. So let's say the condensate drain gets blocked up. The second float, when it closes, is basically a normally closed switch that opens, and then it shuts the unit down, and it'll give you a display that says, you know, condensate issue or condensate blockage. But the other thing to keep in mind is there is no interaction between the air outside, the condensate air. So, you know, air comes in from the outside and then is exhausted back outside. But there is no interaction between the outside air and the inside air. They are two completely different and sealed areas of the unit. So the other thing is,
Good.
you know, people say, well, what happens if a gecko gets in here? Is it getting in the house? No, it can't. It can't get, you know, it can't get past the coil, and there's no way that it can get into the house. So nothing that goes into the unit from the condenser side can make it to the indoors.
One thing that we see, especially out at Camp Lejeune, is the need for condenser coil to be coated. Since we have a lot of, the houses on the beach, you see how
Sure.
all the condenser coils just get eaten up. Tell me about your condenser coil. How's it constructed?
So it's a standard copper tube aluminum fin coil. It has a coating on it from the factory.
Okay.
It's not a coating that is designed basically for, say, a seaside application. But the other thing
Yep.
you want to keep in mind, these units are not, the condenser coil is not outside. And it's only,
Yep.
you only got a couple hundred CFM that goes across the condenser coil. So it's not subject to the same type of degradation of the two materials that you get from a standard condenser that's sitting outside in the elements.
Yep. I'm with you. Yeah,
And
that's neat. But I'm glad to hear that it is coated. That's good.
yeah, and again, the coating was essentially designed to allow the condensate to slip a little easier, but
Okay.
again, it doesn't, and we don't promote the fact that it is corrosion resistant to, say, salt. But again, we've got units out there for 20 years all over the world and on seaside applications, and we haven't had to replace a coil.
Okay. Awesome.
So again, when you install a smart unit with, and you're going to use 8-inch holes, you see this little sort of like a quarter moon piece of
Yep. Yep.
plastic. That basically that's pre-notched. So basically, I'll just grab it with a pliers, and you can bend it and bust it off. And
Yeah, kind of like a knockout.
yeah, it's a knockout. And like I said, that has to come off if you're using the 8-inch holes. And I get calls fairly often from people saying, well, my unit's shutting out on high pressure. And then I tell them, okay, take the unit off of the wall and tell me if that half moon is there. And half the time it's there, and that's what the problem is.
Got you.
And this is just showing you, this was actually a unit that got installed by a friend of mine. The fellow in the upper right-hand corner is on the lower right-hand corner is his son. And so they wanted one for this extra room in their house. And so this is just some pictures that show, you know, they say the start to finish. So putting the template on the wall, cutting in your holes to the outside, putting your duct through to the outside, and then hanging your bracket, and you can see the drain line there as well. Oops. And notice that because they had these slats on the outside of their house, they used some additional board so that the grill sat flush up against the board. Okay, so there's, like I say, there's a lot of different types of construction materials out there, and for the installation, the only thing you'd have to supply yourself would be these. If you had to put some additional board to get that thing flat.
Yep. But
And the
you
other
guys
thing,
have really done something different. Yeah, you're going to it right now. You guys have come out with a square rectangular box now, louvered box, right?
well, we have, in fact, I have it. I was down in Florida for the past month. I just got back yesterday, and I have a sample sitting I haven't even opened the box yet, but it's a sample of a rectangular grill. So basically, you could use 2 rectangular grills or 1 large rectangular grill. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this grill was not okay. This grill actually caused that unit to fail because it didn't have the free area of the grill that we had. So
Got you.
the only thing I want to tell you is you should always use the grill that comes with the unit or a factory approved third-party grill, and not just one you get, say, at your local HVAC shop.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's a look. As I mentioned earlier, we have that condensate pump, and we have the 2 floats. So you see the lower float, and then you see the upper float. And the lower float is a normally open switch that closes to turn on this pump. And again, the upper float is normally closed, and when it rises, it turns the unit off, okay? So that the condensate can be drained. Now, keeping in mind, this unit, the pump is not used in heating mode. In heating mode, we energize something that's called a thermo actuator, and it basically lets the condensate just drain out without pumping it.
Got you.
Now, again, the back of the unit is where the drain is for most of your applications. But if the unit does clog up, let's say something gets into the drain line, and then you slide out the bottom. And by the way, when you slide that bottom out, you can't see it in this picture, but if you were looking up top above that little slide, that's where the model and serial number, that's where your data plate is located.
Okay.
Okay. But anyway, there is a drain that you can then drain that. Let's say the condensate is blocked up. You can clean your condensate, but you can take that plug out of the bottom, and it will allow the condensate in the drain pan to drain out so that you can clean it.
Okay. Nice.
So that is essentially, in a nutshell, the installation of the Smart. And I'm going to show you the Pro next. But do you have any questions?
No, we've been asking as we go along, and I
Good.
appreciate it. No, we're good.
All right. So this is a look at the Pro model. And again, we're not going to go through all of the installation slides like we did with the Smart because they install essentially identically. And you can see it's a much more modern design. It does have the, in fact, the factory hired one of the largest design firms in Milan to redesign the outside of the unit to make it blend nice with a lot of architectural homes. So again, it has a much nicer design to it, and it comes with a, again, also with a remote control. And again, the primary difference between the remote controls is on the Pro model, you can switch from Fahrenheit to metric and back depending on what you prefer. Okay. And again, these are some of the features and benefits of the unit.
Orchestra and a composer.
What's that?
On that last slide, what was that about an orchestra and a composer? I'm trying to read that. All the silence you want using the silent mode function. A true orchestra conductor. What does that mean?
So basically what that means is if you elect silent mode, it runs the fan at a lower speed. It gives you a little bit better dehumidification, but it lowers the decibel level as well. So we call it silent mode and sometimes night mode, but all it does is take that that ECM motor on the inside and lowers its speed
Down. Yeah.
so that you're
Okay.
moving
Yeah.
less than.
We got it.
I got it now. I just wasn't making
Sure,
sense
sure.
from a conductor standpoint.
So again, this gives you your, sorry about that, all the dimensions and your CFMs and your fan speeds and what type of, inverter it is and what your winter and heating capacities are. Okay.
Yeah, so I did have a question on this part. Is I see all the maximum capacities and the maximum CFM, but what is the minimum? Like, the engineer specifically asked me, what's the turn down of this Pro model? How much will it ramp down?
It will
And
ramp
that was
down.
hard to find.
It will ramp down to 35% of total capacity.
Okay.
And like I say, when you turn the unit on, you're not going to know what capacity it's in unless you have you set it for a very low temperature and it makes its way up to high capacity or high speed, 60 hertz, if you will. But you can't set it for any specific speed because the unit will look at what the difference is between your set point and the room
Yep.
temperature. And then it uses something called a PID loop, which is proportional derivative loop.
So it ramps up and modulates to meet
and
the
so
capacity.
it's constantly making adjustments
Yep.
to run the motors and the compressor at the lowest watt usage to achieve the goal.
Yep, I'm with
Is
you.
there a way to set the volume of air that it's moving at a constant on the evaporator side so that you can do, you're going to be bringing, if they're in a rest home, they're going to bring in the outside air and supply it neutral to the space. And a lot of times I'll see these engineers require me, especially when I'm doing VRF, to set the evaporator, the indoor fan, at a constant speed because they want to keep that ratio constant of outside air.
There's a fan speed selector, and so you can set your temperature and then put it in high speed fan, medium speed fan, or low speed fan. And of course, if you're running at high capacity on low fan, you'll have more dehumidification and less sensible heat removal, but you can set it for low, medium, and high.
Okay.
And this is just a look at what comes shipped with the unit, basically the same things that come shipped in the Smart model. And you'll notice O and P here are extra filters, and these are a purifying filter and a carbon activated filter. They, those are optional. They can be used or they can not be used. It depends on, whether the consumer wants to use them, if you will.
Got you.
And again, here is your user interface, basically your remote control. And you can see on the bottom there, bottom right, you can change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And then, you can increase, decrease temperature, change your fan speed, select your mode of operation. You can also, again, use econ mode, which, uses, again, a lower speed and a lower capacity. And the flap, your oscillating flap, it goes up and down to, move the air around the space, but you can, let it go open and closed, up and down, and set it at whatever position
you want it. Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Okay. And then occasionally you may run into, there are probably hundreds of thousands of PTACs on the market right now, and many of them have reached their 15 to 18 year lifespans. And so one of the things we've developed is what we call a PTAC retrofit kit. And so most times a building owner doesn't want to use a PTAC again because they're loud and they're clunky.
Yeah.
So what we have done is you take we've created a retrofit kit. So you take the old PTAC out of the wall, but you leave the
wall sleeve there.
You leave the sleeve in place. And then you
Yep.
use this retrofit kit, which is basically a 6-sided box of 1.5 inch fiberglass ductboard, and that slides right into the space where the PTAC sleeve was, and it slides into the sleeve. And then you put your template on the wall. You cut the 8-inch holes out of the front and the back, and now you have a sealed unit with basically, you're not going to use the outside grills because you're just going to get your duct to go up against the grill on the outside. So from the outside, it doesn't look like anything's really changed.
How do you keep it from just recirculating the hot air in there?
Well, like I say, you're drawing in from one side and exhausting through the other side. And when it gets when that duct gets fitted tied up against there, you have no recirculation.
But I guess
I've installed 2 of these in a apartment building in Miami Beach, right on South Beach. This guy rents this.
Okay.
This guy rents he has 2 units there, 2 apartments, and he rents them out about 300 nights a year. And we just took those out. We put these in, and the only complaint he used to get from his tenants was that the PTACs were too damn loud.
Yeah. Yep.
He doesn't get that complaint any longer.
Yeah, this is a great solution. I love this. Somebody had a good idea when they came up with this one.
We can have these made for you, or you could probably get them made very cost effectively by any contractor near you.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you. I like this.
And that's just what it looks like when it's, gets all sealed up and everything.
Yeah, foil backing.
Right.
Nice.
So that's basically the Pro model. Again, this wasn't so much an installation as it was an overview of the product. And if we get to the point where you're going to start installing these, and I'm not sure if you have in-house installers that you'd be using or if you'd be contracting, but we would want them to sit through, again, about a 45-minute presentation on the installation side. And we can do another presentation just on troubleshooting. So
I could see where this would be really a good way to teach a contractor on how to install these properly, because it's in a lot of these jobs, it's once they learn how to do one correctly, then it's times 100. I mean,
Right.
So we don't want them to screw up all 100.
Sure.
Well, Jack, I appreciate you giving me this presentation. I gained a lot from it. You know what I would like to do is let me talk to my engineer. His name is Jim Benson, and he works with CBHF